Hi, I'm Lima, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about two of the most well-known chronographs in history. I'm talking about the Rolex Daytona and the Omega Speedmaster 321, and we're going to evaluate them to see which one is the winner in this battle. So for this test we're going to see the history and pedigree of the watches, the case, the dial, the bracelet, the mechanism, how it wears on the wrist, how desirable are these watches, the retail price versus the secondary market, and how the watch makes you feel when you're wearing it. At the end, we should have a clear winner or not. Let's see it. Well, let's start about history. We have to start by the Omega. Everybody associates the Speedmaster to the first watch used on the moon, but it was only in 1965, and the watch already exists since 1957. So this watch was the choice of NASA instead of Rolex Daytona when they did the test to choose the watch that can resist to all the factors of using a watch on the moon. This was a clear winner instead the Daytona. The Rolex Daytona only came to life 6 years after of this Speedmaster. So it was like a copy that tried to make a step forward from the Speedmaster, and I think they didn't get there. It started to be manufactured since 1963, and it didn't pass on the NASA test that was made outside the knowledge of the brand. So when NASA did the tests for the watches, they test several watches. The brands were not involved directly and they didn't know about this. So the Daytona is a watch that only started to be very recognized after the famous actor Paul Newman used it in pursuing his racing career. He was an actor passionate by speed, and he always used a Rolex Daytona on his wrist to control the speed of his laps, and that's when this watch, the Rolex, not this one, this is the latest version of the watch, start to be more recognized. And the watch of Paul Newman, actually, it was sold in 2017 for the staggering amount of $17.8 million. It's a huge ton of money for a simple stainless steel watch chrono. The one that bought the watch, he must know the value of the watch for him. But for the matter of this test, we have to give a point to the Speedmaster. It was the first and the best, and win with the most history. So Speedmaster 1, Daytona 0. Let's talk about the case. Well, the Omega we have here is not a professional model. It's, the professional is a more modern, with a bigger case, is 42 millimeters. And this is a representation of the Speedmaster that Ed White used when walking on the moon. This watch is not 42 millimeters. Omega claims 39.7 millimeters. They are very accurate in measurements. And the Rolex is a 40 millimeters case. So they are both almost the same, and both of watches are in stainless steel. The level of finish of both cases is very identical. After all, this is two watches that, since they were launched, they always follows more or less the steps one of the other to try to beat themselves. They try to be the best in class for years. So the Rolex have the ceramic tachymetric, and the fact that having screws on the chrono pushers and the main pusher also have to be screw, it makes a more waterproof resistant. That's why this watch has 100 meters of water resistant instead of the 50 meters that the Omega offers. So for me, this is a plus, because I like to be comfortable to use the watch and go to the water with no afraid of damage the mechanism. And in this particular model, the Speedmaster, there's also a detail I love. The pushers, they are exposed, they have no protections, and I like this vintage factor that the watch have in the case, so yeah. But overall, about case, here I'm going to give it a point to the Rolex Daytona. I really like the fact of the ceramic, and 100 meters for me is definitely a point here. So Speedmaster 1 and Daytona 1 point. Let's talk now about the dial of these watches. They are very similar and very different at the same time. The Rolex we have here is the Panda dial with the white, and here in the Speedmaster we have the black vintage dial, and both of watches they have the small seconds and the chrono minutes and 12 hours of the chrono also. Both models they don't have a date window. The professional model of the Speedmaster, the more modern version of this watch, is bigger and it has date window, but not in this case. Okay. About the luminance of the watches is not so important because this is not a diver watch, but the Omega is a clear winner, as you can see. It has better lumen. There's also the chrono seconds, unlike the Rolex that don't have luminance on the seconds. About how legible is the dial, I think the Omega is also a winner because the contrast of the white hands with the black dial, it's a more clear watch. And also I feel that Daytona has a much more busy dial than the Speedmaster. With all the Rolex, the chronograph, and okay, everything that says here, I think this is a more busy dial, and I prefer the simple dial of the Speedmaster. In both models, the logo is not printed, it's in metal, very well made, very well positioned, like we would expect from a brand like Omega and Rolex. The only advantage of the Daytona is the bigger tachymetric scale, but I don't know everyone that use it. So here the winner, in my opinion, is the Speedmaster, of course, regardless of your taste of the looks of the watches. Okay, we're talking here about the dial itself and not about the way it looks, but yeah, for me, the Speed is the winner. Speedmaster 2, Rolex Daytona 1. Let's talk about now the bracelet. Both watches, they have a 3-link bracelet. The Rolex, it has a very well-known oyster bracelet. They are different because in the way the polish on the Rolex is on the middle, in the center links, and here the polish is on the side links. So they went to different approaches about polishing, but I think the fact of the Omega have the polish on the sides make this watch a little bit more scratch resistance. About the level of finish, what can we say? It's very high-end in both watches, so yeah. To decide this, we're going to have to follow to the clasp. The clasp here in the Omega is a simple folding clasp with no quick adjustment. You can adjust, you have two more ways to do small adjustments on the bracelet, but you have to use tools to do this, not with the Rolex, okay? With the Rolex, you have the very well-known Easy Link, where you can adjust one link very easily, and it's very useful, especially in summertime. And I like to use my watches tied to the wrist, so this is a better bracelet, okay? I have no doubt about that. This is a clear winner on the clasp compared to the Omega. So now we have 2 points for the Omega, 2 points here for the Daytona. Let's keep going. Now we have to talk about the mechanism and the similarities of the mechanism, and on the fact that they are both chrono mechanism, okay? But the Rolex is a bidirectional self-winding with 72 hours of power reserve, and the Omega, it wears the beautiful 3-to-1 mechanism, is a manual winding, not automatic, and it has 55 hours of power reserve. I like the fact that you have to wind the watch. It's a special feeling, you know, and it suits the vintage looks of and style of the Omega. And the way that the mechanism of the Omega looks, it's wow. It's another level. When you start looking of this mechanism, that the Omega made it possible to see it with this sapphire crystal, wow. It's a very pleasure to look at it, and it looks like a much more expensive watch, no doubt about that. I saw during my years of passion about watches a lot of mechanism, and in some models I don't see a point of showing the case because you see nothing special, but that not happens here, okay? When you look at this, wow, the level of finish and the detailing and yeah, the three dimensions of mechanism, I really like this mechanism. So here, no doubt, the Speedmaster about the mechanism is a clear winner. So we have 3 points for the Speedmaster, 2 points for the Daytona. Now let's talk about how the watch feels on your wrist. They are both 40 millimeters case, but the Daytona is slimmer than the Omega. And I think to use, for example, with the suit is a better choice. And overall is a better watch to wear. When you put it on your wrist, it's a little bit slimmer than the Omega. The Omega is almost 14 millimeters high, so I prefer the way that the Rolex wears, but that does not mean that the Speedmaster is not a user-friendly watch. I just think that the Daytona is a little better because the slimmer case, the curved size of the watch, and also the ceramic tachymeter is also a plus because it looks good. It's a better looking watch on the wrist, in my opinion. So here I will give a point to the Daytona. It wears a little bit better than the Omega, and personally I prefer the way the looks of the Daytona instead of the Omega. Okay, so 3 points for the Speedmaster, 3 points for the Daytona. This is getting close. Well, we have to talk about the level of desire that people have for these two models. And I think the lifetime waiting list that you have for the Daytona speaks for itself, okay? It's just crazy. When I bought this watch, the expected waiting list for this watch was 6 years. Yeah, I bought it in 2018, I think. So it already came the new revised model. It was launched 2 months ago, I believe. But yeah, it's crazy. This is the only watch I pay a premium price on the secondary market, okay? The Speedmaster, the 321, is a small production watch. It also have a waiting list. Each year the waiting list is bigger than the passing year, but nothing compared to the Daytona. About desire, it's no doubt that Daytona is a clear winner. I have to give a point to that. And 4 points for the Daytona now and 3 points for the Speedmaster. Now let's talk here about price. My Rolex, the Daytona, when I purchased this watch, the retail price was 11,300 euros, if I'm not mistaken. And now the market value of this watch is 32,000 euros. At this time that the watch market has a correction in price, okay? The Speedmaster, when I bought this watch, it cost me 15,000 euros. Now the market value is around 20,000 euros. So if you get your hands on one of these models, you will have your money always there, okay? And it will increase in value, but the chances that you can put your hands on the Daytona for a fair price is going to be very, very hard, and you know that. I know people that are serious collectors that or they don't get their watch yet, or if they have it, they had to pay a premium price for this watch, okay? So it's going to be very hard, and the Daytona, as an investment, if you can put your hands on this watch at retail, is going to be a much better investment than the Speedmaster. So I have to give it a point here for the Daytona. So we are now 3 points for the Speedmaster, 5 points for the Rolex Daytona. Now we have to talk about other facts that of owning these watches. Okay, they are both very special pieces. I love both of these watches. But when you have the Rolex on your wrist, you are calling for attention because everybody knows this watch. I believe this is one of the most recognizable watches in the world. I already have people on planes, restaurants that came to me just asking to see the watch at live. Never saw that. And I also already have people asking me to sell it. I have a story. I was dinner in a restaurant with some friends, and a couple of French person came to me asking me, "Hey, where did you get this watch? Do you want to sell me that watch?" It's crazy. On the other hand, when you are using the 321, this is a watch for you and for connoisseurs, okay? When I'm wearing this watch, it's like the feeling that I'm wearing a secret, something that only me and some connoisseurs will know, because this is not a common Speedmaster. This is a special piece. This is a very special watch. It has a lot of history. It has a beautiful exposed mechanism that you will not find this on a professional Speedmaster. You will not find this on the Daytona. It's also rare, not as the Daytona, but hey, I really enjoy using this watch. And I'm going to give you an example of myself. Since I bought this watch, the Speedmaster, I see me using more times this one instead of the Rolex. I don't know why, but when I put this watch on my wrist, it's a special feeling of using it. And my appreciation for this watch is growing on me as time goes by, so I really like it. And because of how special this is, I'm going to give it to the Speedmaster an extra point. It's different, but a very special feeling when I'm wearing it, and a much more discreet watch. And sometimes using a more discreet watch is a better way to go, and you can achieve that using the Speedmaster instead of the Daytona. So here at the end the result is 4 points for the Speedmaster, 5 points for the Daytona. But this does not mean that the Rolex is a better watch, okay? It all depends in what you prioritize. To be honest, in my opinion, the Speedmaster overall is a better watch. The Daytona, okay, it has all the hype surrounding the watch, the model, you have the power of the Rolex brand. But at the end, with the Speedmaster 321, you know that you are wearing a piece of history, and you can do things that you cannot do with the Daytona. Like look at the beautiful mechanism, you can wind the watch, is a special feeling like I told you. And about wearing, there are times when using a more discreet watch is a better and more convenient, like I told you. So yeah. I hope I never have to decide which watch I have to keep in my collection, because I really like both watches. So let me know in the comment section what's the watch you would prefer to have if you can only have one, or tell me in your opinion which one is the better watch. I'm very interested to know your opinion on that. So that's all for today. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you didn't subscribe to my channel yet, please do it. I appreciate your support, and take care. See you next time. Okay, ciao.